Well, greetings and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Karl's Spirits. And tonight we're going to be tasting very old St. Nick. This is very old St. Nick. I'm going to talk a little bit about that right after we come back. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to welcome you to another episode of Karl's Spirits. As I record this video tonight, we are about 2 days from Christmas, and I thought it would be very appropriate to review very old St. Nick. This is very old St. Nick from Preservation Distillery. But before I forget, please, if you haven't done so, go ahead and like and subscribe, Karl's Spirits. This will help the channel. It'll get more people involved in the bourbon world, and that's what we're after here. Getting people involved in bourbon and have a little bourbon education. Also, before I forget, I want to take this time to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. I hope you and your family find peace and happiness during this time, and you are able to celebrate with traditions both old and new. So, on to tonight's story about very old St. Nick. And we got to go back till September of 2021 when a couple of friends and I attended the Kentucky Bourbon Festival in Bardstown, Kentucky. We had a wonderful time, stayed in a wonderful 1800s mansion as a VRBO. Really enjoyable time both there and at the Bourbon Festival itself. While we were there at the Bourbon Festival, we tasted a lot of wonderful bourbons. We tasted some bourbons that were okay too. But we did stop in at the Preservation Distillery tent. And there we met a young lady named Molly who was working the tent for Preservation. She had been with the distillery for quite a while. She was incredibly helpful and very knowledgeable about not only the spirits she was serving, but also about the distillery. So really quick, Preservation Distillery is a micro craft distillery located right in the heart of bourbon country, right in Bardstown. It is owned by Marcy Palatella, and I hope I said that right, and they are the current producers of Old St. Nick. Now I say current producers because it's kind of hazy and murky out there. And so if you research Old St. Nick, what you're going to find is very little information and a whole lot of speculation. What I have managed to piece together is what I'm about to tell you. If anyone has more information or my information is wrong, please let me know in the comments. So the brand itself is started as an export brand bound for Japan. And for a while, the bourbon that was in production that went into the Old St. Nick bottle was actually from old barrels from the Stitzel Weller Distillery. And it was even bottled by Julian Van Winkle. Yes, of that Van Winkle family. And then later it's bottled by a few other folks. Now, today Preservation owns the Old St. Nick label, and they blend and batch in very small lots. And when I say small lots and small batch, they use up to 3 barrels. They use no more than 3 barrels in their blending batch. And so this means out of that 3-barrel lot, the actual yield of bottles is going to be significantly lower than of other, more commercialized stock. You have to keep in mind these barrels are reputed to be old. Now, what that actually means, we don't know because there's no age statement on here. So, if you want to call old 8 years, you can figure that 10, 20%, 25% of the liquid has already vanished from the barrel through evaporation or by being soaked into the wood. If it's older than that, you can figure less. But if we figure 50% of 3 barrels, you got a barrel and a half, you're barely producing 280, maybe 300 bottles if you're lucky for that specific batch and blend. So we're talking very craft, we're talking very minute amounts of supply available for the John Q public to purchase and to try. They are still using source whiskey. In fact, on the back of the bottle I have, it says it's distilled distilled in Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee. But they are beginning to use some of their own distillate. They are in production of that. And so you're probably saying, okay, this is not a lot of information, and I will completely agree with you on that. And how does this all tie together to what we're drinking? Well, while we were enjoying the hospitality from Preservation, we got to sit in their VIP tent for a while, and we really fell for this bottle of Old St. Nick while we were sitting there. And we thought it was quite good. Now, to be honest, like I mentioned earlier, full disclosure, we had sampled quite a bit of bourbon during those days. And so we all knew we were having a great time. We were in the moment, and we purchased a bottle to be savored by us later. And so later happened just a few short days ago. We sat down, three of us, to enjoy this bottle and to relive that Bourbon Festival experience. Now, I'm going to be really honest, I had some trepidation about this because, you know, in the back of my mind, I kept wondering, was it really good because we were at the festival and had a lot to drink, or is it actually going to be swill in the bottle and we, you know, just wasted that money? The other two guys that were at the festival with me, they all said they felt quite the same way. Our fourth guy didn't get to go. He was just anxious to try the new bourbon. So I poured. We sniffed. We sampled. And we enjoyed. Okay, we did enjoy. All of us agreed that while it's not the best bottle of bourbon we've ever had out there, the flavor profile that it presented met our palates very nicely. And in the words of one of the members, or one of the guys that I was with, it took me back to that day, meaning that day at the Bourbon Festival. And folks, I've said this before and it bears repeating again. Bourbon is meant to be enjoyed with friends and family. It is meant to be an experience. And we had a great time that weekend a few months ago, and we came home with this bottle that reminded us of our shared experiences in our brotherhood and fraternity that we enjoyed that weekend. So, having said all that, what's it actually taste like? Well, first of all, mash bill is undisclosed. As I said, it says on the bottle, distilled in Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana. So if I'm hazarding a guess, and I could be completely wrong here, I'm going to say Willet in Kentucky. Although Heaven Hill springs up quite a bit in research online. I'm going to say probably Dickel in Tennessee, and I'm going to say, of course, MGP out of Indiana. Those are just the big heavy hitters that I know do a lot of production for other non-distilling producers. There's also no age statement on this particular bottle. Some of the very old St. Nick bottles have 8-year or 12-year or 15-year age statements. This does not have an age statement, although it says ancient cask. We don't know what that means. We're just going to say it's older and go with that. And it is 97.2 proof. So not too heavy, not too light, right there in the middle. So in our glass tonight, in our glass of Old St. Nick, we have a really rich caramel color. And that word caramel is going to pop up a lot here because this has a lot of caramel notes to it. It does have some really nice, thick, clingy legs. They just really hang on there. For the nose, oaky. And so this leads me to believe, first of all, that it probably is a little bit older than 4 years, 6 years, something like that. It has a definite oak note on the nose. Caramel, though, holds center stage. Get lots of caramel, but that oak just kind of wraps around it. It really does smell quite nice, I think. And so for the taste, it's got a medium mouthfeel. The caramel is right there, front and center. Also, popping in really quick are those vanilla and mocha notes. So a little mocha thrown in here. Some vanilla. And then there's a nice, rich leather taste, which I happen to enjoy. I know a lot of bourbon drinkers don't enjoy leather. I happen to be one who does. There is also a noticeable alcohol burn toward the end. It's not distracting, but just letting you know it is there. The finish is what I wouldn't call it long, I wouldn't call it short. It's right there in the middle. Mild, medium. It's a mild finish, but it does have those notes of oak and caramel. They really outlast the leather. The leather dissipates, but that oaky, it's almost an astringent oak kind of takes over toward the very end. And as I've been sitting here talking, that astringency is kind of popping up a little bit more on the edge of my tongue. It's not off-putting, but it is there. So, having said all that, where are we? What's the takeaway from Old St. Nick? Well, I think some people are going to say this is over-oaked because of that astringency that I just mentioned, and I don't think a lot of people are going to like it. I think this is actually probably a polarizing bourbon. I think a lot of people are either going to say, yeah, I really enjoy this because I like those dark notes of leather and oak. I see others saying it's too oaky, I don't like leather, I want more fruity or floral. I'm not picking up the fruity. There's a little fruit note in here, a little dark fruit maybe, but there's definitely not a floral note for me in this bottle. Personally, for my friends and I who purchased this bottle together, it struck us as just the right note on taste, and it's really scored a home run on nostalgia, and I think that's kind of the important thing here. Now, what's it cost? What's the cost? That's always the big question. It's pricey. It's $150 for the bottle. We split it 3 ways, brought it home, so it's worth a split of $50 to try something new with friends, especially one that you're going to be able to recall other times. So it was worth it for us to split and save for our little Christmas get-together. So rating this is going to be really difficult because how do you rate nostalgia? You have to separate that nostalgia and the experience from the actual taste. So I find the oak and the leather and the caramels really enjoyable flavors. And I've gone back and forth on this, not really knowing how to separate out the flavor that I'm getting from the actual memory and nostalgia. So ultimately, I'm going to go with 4.25 stars. There it is, 4.25 stars. Remember, this is subjective. Bourbon's always subjective. But this is just my opinion. Yours may be different, and that's okay. I've said that repeatedly in all of these episodes. Your opinion may differ than mine, and that's okay. The important thing is you try something new and you think about what you like. You find what you like, that's wonderful. I'm always going to enjoy the Old St. Nick line. It's about the experience, it's about the brotherhood, and that's what I really enjoy about the Old St. Nick. We all talked about it, and this is just going to be something that we always kind of remember that we did together. Now, might not mean anything to anyone else, but it means a lot to the 3 of us. So, as always, ladies and gentlemen, that's my opinion. That's my take on Old St. Nick, the Curia edition, by the way. And I want you to stay safe, peace, and happy pouring.